Hey there, folks. Zach Roberts. What did I just do there with that shoulder? I don't even know. I hit record and I saw a couple of dust particles fall. Oh, there's another one. A few dust particles falling through this shaft of light. And for some reason, my shoulders just decided to do something. Whew. It's been a day. It's been a long day. This is a story about a house. It's not a very happy story. It ends okay. It ends okay. Have you heard I'm a real estate agent? Back in August, I started working with a client, and from beginning to end, the client's been great. She's been great. We looked at 3 houses. All of them were duds. Second time we went out, we looked at 3 more houses. She liked all 3 of them. And I agreed. I thought any one of the 3 would probably be decent. My least favorite of the 3 was the one that she then decided she wanted to make an offer on. This is where we take a quick pause and say, wait, Zach, you're the real estate agent. Shouldn't you talk her into and talk her? Nope. I like to tell my clients, my job is never to talk you into or out of anything. I can guide, I can inform. I think that's my big job. I inform and teach. But at the end of the day, if you choose property XYZ, I'm here to help you purchase property XYZ. I'm not the one paying for it, and I'm not the one living in it. I'm just here to make sure that you know as much as possible so you can make an informed decision on property XYZ. Let me tell you about property XYZ, and I'm going to be really careful here not to say names of people. I don't want to say any specifics. The house was probably an early 1960s ranch-style home. It was built on, it had a crawl space underneath it. It was on a little bit of a slope, but not a dramatic hillside or anything like that. It was not near a creek. It was not near a river. And yet, it had some water problems. The client really liked the house, though. We walked through and she had somebody with her, and that person said, wow, it just feels like home. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting thought, because it was at the time owner-occupied. Some people walk through an owner-occupied home and they see shoes and coats and pictures, and they go, this isn't my home. This is clearly somebody else's home, and I'm intruding. In this particular case, the client walked through, and it was a feeling of, ooh, I could live here. We could live here. This could be ours. And I thought that was pleasant. That was nice. That's good. My job is to show all of the material facts. Material facts are any details that could lead a person to buy or not to buy the home. And you don't want to get too nitpicky. You know, an example that was made to me when I first started as an agent: if the towel rack in the bathroom is loose, that's not a material fact. Nobody's going to buy that house or avoid buying that house because of a loose towel rack. But if a new interstate is going to come through adjacent to the property within the next year, boy, that's a material fact. Anything to do with foundation, anything to do with roof leaks, leak of any kind, those sorts of things make buyers scared. And so I'm really there walking through that first visit. I'm looking for problems. And I'm trying to use good common sense, along with my education and experience. I'm trying to figure out, is that thing a real big issue? Is it a medium issue? Is it a low issue? I'm not trying to do the work of an inspector, but I am trying to prejudge. I know that sounds dirty, but I am trying to prejudge before an inspector even gets there. That looks like a problem. And what was the problem on house XYZ? Woo! That crawl space was soppy wet. Nasty wet. I opened the crawl space door, and there was a heating and cooling unit, HVAC unit, sitting right next to the door, and it had a little pipe coming out that was really putting out a lot of water. Some of that's normal. I'm not an HVAC guy, but some of that condensation water coming out of there, you want it to come away, you want it to leave the unit. But this was a steady stream, and a lot of it. And even though the house was sitting on that little bit of a slope, it's like the water wasn't going away like it should. So the client and I talked about it, and she said, well, this just seems like it needs a longer drain. We need to work on the grade a little bit. We can get an underground thing. And I said, I agree with all of that. But the crawl space. We had a dry summer. We had a really dry summer. And like I said, this was August or early September. And in that crawl space, inside, remember the HVAC unit was outside. Inside the crawl space, I could scoop mud. I don't mean cakes of clay. I mean soppy mud. And I said, I'm being honest with you. I don't know how the water's doing this, because you do have that drain with the condensation leaving, the HVAC, and it seems like it's kind of doing its job, but this is a lot of water. My job is to tell her that there's a lot of water there. And then she chooses to make an offer on the house or not to. I communicated with the listing agent that this was a concern, and she said, sellers haven't seen any issues. Don't seem to be any problems with them. And the buyer said, I want to go ahead and put in the offer. I want to buy the house. We here in North Carolina, we have a due diligence period where my client paid for that period. The home is taken off the market for that period of time, and then she can bring in inspectors, plumbers, painters, whoever she needs to come in and give estimates, to give inspections, all those sorts of things. And you're paying the seller for his inconvenience. We are inconveniencing you by bringing in these people. And so she had paid that fee, and I don't remember how much it was. It doesn't matter. She'd paid the fee. And the general home inspector does a general inspection. And the guy she used did an excellent job, but it is still a general inspection. He is not a specialist in mold or carpentry or HVAC. So he uses his little moisture meter, and he holds it up to the wood of the floor joists, and he checks several different areas, and he comes back and he says, ma'am, moisture reading in parts of this crawl space were above 44%. 44%? Reasonable. 10, 12, maybe 15%. 44%. He included pictures in the inspection where water was dripping off of the floor joists. It was so wet, for various reasons that I never did completely understand. It was so wet in that crawl space that he took a Phillips headed screwdriver and pushed it through one of the floor joists. It was so rotted. I'm allowing this story to get a little too long. My client has a mold inspector come out. He says there is mold everywhere. And it was on floor joists. It was in the air handler. It was in the ductwork. It was everywhere. Home did not have a vapor barrier. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's just plastic sheeting. It's usually pretty thick, but that plastic sheeting is meant to keep ground moisture from rising up into the woodwork of the home. Instead, it hits the underside of that plastic and stays down close to ground level. It's not a perfect system, but it's a pretty good system. This home didn't have that. Well, we go back with what's called a DDRA, and it's a due diligence request and agreement, I think is the A standing there. We send in our DDRA. And my client did a bold request. I mean, she wanted a long list of things done in order to keep her into the bargain. She's saying, if you do these things, I will stay and purchase this home. And initially, in the verbal back and forth between me and the other agent, she said, yes, my clients will agree to do X, Y, and Z. We will do these things to keep you in the deal. Then when I sent it in writing, this is when things changed. If you've been following me as a friend, as a follower, as a buddy, you know that I'm still fairly new to the real estate industry. I have finished my first year. I'm now working through my second year. And this is the first real estate agent I have encountered who was a bully. She was mean. I've encountered some who were maybe pushy. This was not that. When I sent that written DDRA request, she was mean. And I don't know why. Was she threatened? Was she uncomfortable that we had found all this moisture when it should have been disclosed at the forefront? Remember, material fact. If it was, and it was, if it were going to be that wet under that home, that should have been disclosed at the very beginning. She said, well, we just didn't even know. And I think, because you didn't open the crawl space door. In that phone call, she tried to make me look very small. And she said, I mean, have you ever even been in a crawl space in North Carolina? It's moist under there, and there's going to be some mold growth. I said, excuse me? Yes, I have. But not 44% moisture level. She was twisting this to make it look like I was the unreasonable one. And I admit that there are many aspects to a real estate transaction that I am still learning, and I may not be the best at. I make mistakes all the time. But in this particular case, I think she was being mean. And I thought, man, I don't know. If I've made a mistake, if I'm requesting something, if I'm requesting something that's really our job to be doing, then talk with me about that. But when we made this request for certain things to be done, she's mean. And that's where I'm going with this. The character of the person spoke louder than the transaction. When I try to, I don't want to sound bad here, but when I try to sell myself as a real estate agent to you, I hope the number one thing that comes to your mind is his character. Zach is honest. Zach is hardworking. Zach is very communicative. He responds to texts. He responds to emails. When he makes a mistake, not if, when he makes a mistake, he owns it. He tells us, and we move on. I believe that real estate agents sometimes get a reputation. And you know there are different professions that have these reputations. We think of real estate agents, we think of lawyers, and it's like these fat cats who just sit around and make a bunch of money. Let me tell you what happened. We had a lot of back and forth on that house. And in order for my client to back out and still receive a portion of her money back that she had put into the pot, skin in the game, she was going to have to back out by 5 o'clock on this certain date. And there were a lot of moving parts and different people to blame and different issues at hand. We did not get the appraisal back until after the due diligence period ended. That was a nightmare. We didn't get word back. This is the key. We didn't get word back from those sellers that they were going to be truly unwilling to work with us until 6 minutes after 4 on that day. Remember, we had to back out by 5. And so real estate agent Zach has to fly through a phone call with my client and explain what her options are. And then she says, I need to talk to and so she had to call Dad or whoever, and they had to talk through things. And then she calls me back and says, we're backing out. It's over. We just can't do this deal anymore. And there are some of you watching this video saying, well, if she had just listened to you in the first place. No. In the first place, when we looked at the house, all I said was, I think there are a lot of things working against you here. And she said, but I still like it and I want to buy it. My job is not to talk her into or out of. So we make it to that point. I fly through a termination. I write it up, send it over. We back out of the deal. Within a week, she finds another house. We go under contract on that house. Halfway through that contract, there was an issue with her loan. And she was ready to terminate that. And I made kind of a Hail Mary, last-minute, last-ditch effort, contacted a loan officer buddy of mine, and he saw her through to completion on that transaction. What's the point of all of this? When I tell you real estate stories, they're real. These are not made up. I wouldn't make these up. These are real. These are the ways in which I earn a paycheck. And let me tell you, I earned that paycheck. I earned it so many different ways. Your real estate agent is not just a salesperson. Anybody could be a salesperson. I am an advocate. I'm a listener. I sit with you when you grieve because you lost that deal or you didn't get that concession that you had hoped for. I negotiate on your behalf so you don't have to. I walk you through timelines to know what to expect. I walk you through home inspections to know which are the bigger issues and which are the ones that we should probably not worry too much about because they're DIY. A real estate agent is somebody who wears 65 different hats, and almost every one of them is relational. I don't get to just sit alone and hope everything works out. No, I'm texting and calling and emailing all the time. I like to be there, not literally holding the person's hand, but I like to be there to hold the hand of my client so that he or she knows I've got a buddy. I've got somebody with me in this. And so thankfully, this client now has the keys to her first home. Even down to the very last minute on Halloween night, after closing, I started getting emails and calls. There was an issue with the deed, recordation. How the deed was recorded at the courthouse, there was an issue. And so technically, until it's officially correct, it hasn't conveyed. The property hasn't conveyed into the hands of the new buyer. And so there was an issue. Have you given her the keys? Have you given her the key? No, I haven't. So this morning, there was a fix. And thankfully, I didn't have to do anything. And the buyer didn't have to do anything either. It was between the attorneys. But right down to the wire. On a Halloween night at a party, and I'm trying to eat my Sour Patch Kids, and here I have to keep answering the daggone phone. That's how I earn my paycheck. If you ever sit back and say, well, what do real estate agents do anyhow? A lot. A whole lot. And I'll tell you, especially in today's market, I hesitate to say this, but I'll go ahead and tell you. I've just earned my first real estate paycheck since July. Is that because I've not been working? No, it's not. I simply don't get paid until the client gets the keys in hand. And it's been a hard season. But I heard somebody say recently, it's those hard seasons that weed out the weak agents. Well, it's not going to weed me out. I'm sticking it out, and I'm going to be in this thing for a while. I recommend that the next time you need to buy or sell a house, the best thing you could do would be think of Zach Roberts and give him a call. Okay? Hope you're having a good week. It is... what is today? It's Monday. It's been a Monday, too. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.